What's up, guys? This is the It Ain't Easy podcast. I'm your host, Dom Sharanson. Let's get it. Today, we're here with Justice Osei, who's the owner and operator of Cornerstone Security. Justice, what's up, man?
What's going on? What's going on, man? Wagwan, my man.
Yeah. So I've known Justice for a while now. We're good friends, former roommates, and that's for another podcast, the amount of like stories and experiences we had in that house. I can't remember the name of the address.
512, man. Come on. Act like you know.
The 512 was a University Boulevard?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Dalhousie.
UBC alumni. Mm-hmm. So we know, obviously we know you run a security company now, right?
I do.
Multifaceted, a lot of operations. Never a time where this guy isn't on his phone. We could be out, having a good time and have to peace out of nowhere for the next 3 hours. Sorry I had to dip, but
always on call, man.
I got a million things on the go, and you never know when something's gonna pop off. But aside from that, what we don't know is who you are and where you came from. So I'd like to start it off what was elementary school justice like, and kind of that journey all the way to collegiate justice. Who were you? What were your hobbies?
Man, how long is this show? Damn.
We got about an hour.
Elementary school justice. Okay, well, I mean, in elementary school, I would say I'm the youngest of four kids, right? So I always had older brothers. My oldest brother is about 13 years older than me, right? So he was more like my dad figure, right? Single parent household. So elementary school justice was really, really had a lot of deep questions, but nobody answered them. So I guess it was more just very curious, very confused a lot of the time, and very scared, just uncertain of myself, just because, nobody to really. I've always been a bigger guy.
Yep.
But nobody to really show me how to, use all that properly, right?
Right.
Because my brothers were always doing the thing, running around doing their things, right? And my mom was working 3 jobs. So elementary school justice was a curious kid, deep questions. Always wanted to really. I always had a burning passion for why businesses choose to work with each other.
Okay.
I was always curious about making money. We didn't have a lot growing up, so when there was times where lights would cut out or where the hot water stopped working, then it's just where do we have to go to make that not happen?
Never happen again.
Yeah, man.
I feel you. Yep.
So and then fast forward to when we're that NBA never broke again shit.
Yeah.
Then we start in college there, right? So but yeah, man, elementary school justice I had a lot of curiosity. I had the main thing that I learned early was be valuable, be helpful, be present, be allowed to, give a helping hand, right? So, from where that kind of morphed was, trying to figure out an outlet that worked for me. Yeah. I haven't really been. At the time of this podcast, I have a ruptured patella tendon. So if that says anything, I'm not really the star athlete that
once used to
that
be.
Once was.
Yeah.
In my neck of the woods. But at the same time, it's just it's one thing that's always been. I love athletics because you leave it all on the field, people notice, right?
When did you start playing?
Man, I started when I was 13.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and where were you at the time? Elementary school? Where was this?
It was 8th grade, St. Raymond Catholic Elementary School. And it was a summer in Mississauga, Ontario. Mississauga, Ontario. Oh. And I was eating all the candy, all the McCain's cakes and all that kind of stuff, and just playing StarCraft.
Yeah.
And when I told my brother what I was doing, my brother just came out here to SFU on a scholarship, football scholarship in 98, 2000, year 2000 kind of thing.
Yep.
And so I was there, and I told him what I was doing in my summer, and he almost flew down to kill me because he was like, man, if you don't get your big ass off a couch and start doing something with yourself, then we're going to have some problems, right? So he forced me into playing football. And
Big brother, father.
Yeah, man. So he tough loved me into it. And then, I kind of just jumped into it. I didn't know what I was doing. They stuck me in on the O line.
Yeah.
And I was just holding everybody.
Right? Yeah.
So
hey, that's one way to start.
That's how you start, right? So, I just kind of jumped into sports that way, and then just started learning the principles of positive foundations from there. I had some really good coaches growing up. Some really good guys that really mentored me and showed me just simple principles of football, but then that translate into life. Like one of the earliest ones, you can't focus on too many things. You got maybe 2, maybe 3 focuses at one time, but that's about it. Can't do too much things at one time. You know what I mean? So
was there ever a point like when you were playing at the high school level, your brother's playing collegiate, or maybe he's just finishing up, and you're saying, hey, I'm going to go do the same thing that he's doing?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's actually what brought me here, to be honest, because I was, I hated football when I first started. I was 13.
Yeah.
And then, he said, okay, fine. If you don't like it, at least you tried it. You know what I mean? You gave it one shot. You didn't like it, move on, right?
Yep.
Next year, that was in the summertime. High school, first year high school, 9th grade, didn't even play. And then the summer came along, and all my friends were getting girls, and all my friends were like, going out and playing sports and all that stuff, and I felt left out because I was playing StarCraft and eating candy, right? Yeah. So I jumped on another sports team, and then I started playing football again, and then I loved it because, I started learning a little bit more of the rules, doing a little bit more stuff, and then
greater sense of community too at a different age group, right? Like when you're 13, it's still very individual. Your parents are taking you everywhere. You get to like that middle school, high school era, and now you're like somebody because you're on the team.
Exactly, and that's the other thing.
Sense
like
of belonging.
One thing I'm always gonna like, the OVFL, like the Ontario Varsity Football League, football, program there.
Yeah,
they have a really good youth sports program, and they're really good at developing young men and women into like athletes, right? And like the sense of community that they have, like all of our people that were the coaches or the supporters or that brought the barbecues out to the games and stuff, those are all the parents and stuff, right?
Yeah,
it was like, if the parents didn't do it and the parents didn't drive people home and stuff, we didn't have anything, right? So they had a really good community over there, and it allowed me to just like dive in. Like if I was 14 now, and they welcomed me back. It wasn't like, who is this guy?
Yeah,
can you play? Right? And then I ended up playing with some really cool, awesome people that you've ended up playing with in the next level, even, right? So it's just like, there were some real talents that came out of that area, and the community that was brought up there, it was really cool. It was really cool to grow up in that area.
Yeah, I think we're getting to a point like where our paths kind of intersect at some point, right? Was it like Paul Orzetti or somebody at UBC, like a Sean Olsen, that like came to Ontario and was like, "Hey, I'm looking at this guy right now." Like, how did you end up like West Coast because of your brother? Right?
Yeah,
he's at SFU. So.
Yeah, I honestly give everything. The reason why I'm here, I heard about this place and everything, just goes to my older brother, man. Like he's always like been the first soldier out to take all the hits, and then show us all, okay, this is what you don't do, this is what you got to do, right?
He's really taking on that role.
Really, like 10 toes freaking down, right? So it's like,
respect.
I was 16 years old. And he brought me out here on. He brought me and one of my older siblings out, just on a reading break. Like he had his reading break, and in high school you have your little Christmas break or whatever.
Yeah.
He brought me and him out, and just showed us around Vancouver. And when I realized it's like December and we're in shorts.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, this is where I'm going to stay at, right? And then I came back again in the summertime, and then I saw the Symphony of Lights and all that fireworks and stuff, and I was like, I love this city, man. Like he drove us around, like he pressed it upon us that like, yo, this is a place that's very, very diverse. It's like there's a lot of opportunity. People out here have great ideas. It was just like, it's a hotbed for people that just want to get stuff done. right?
Correct.
And it doesn't matter whether they have the resources or they don't have the resources. It's just effort.
I've always thought that was a differentiator between like the guys I know, just specifically from the team or like playing that are out of province. Mm-hmm. Like they come here with a completely different mindset. There's so much complacency in being from a utopia where you can ski and you can swim and you can hike every weekend.
You take it for granted.
You know, you're wearing shorts in December, right? So you get into like the corporate environment or like just like the working culture that you need to be in to thrive. And you know, why am I working so hard? Where if you come here from anywhere else, you know why you're working hard. So you don't have to.
You don't want to go back. There's not much to go back to, right? So it's like, I'm working hard, right? So, man, like that's kind of where the intersection happens. Like, you know, he got me onto there was these camps called Ron Diaz. Like, this guy named Ron Diaz. Remember the camps? He brought me to those camps, right?
Okay, yeah.
Because when he was a kid, he used to go to those camps. My brother, right? And so, you know, he introduced me to Ron Diaz camp. And I think that's where I saw, that might have been where I met Coach Kavaya.
Kavaya, right.
Yeah, that's where I met Coach Kavaya. He didn't look at me, like, when I did the camp, I mean, I never tested well.
Yeah.
Right? So I wasn't like benching through the roof. I didn't run really fast or any of that stuff. I had a good like L drill. And I had a good T time, right?
Which is probably the most practical on the D line.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So I'm a D lineman through and through. Yeah. So it's like, you know, he shrugged his shoulders. He's like, okay, like, you know, what are your grades like? And that's when I had to shut my mouth, right? Because like I was not a good student. Like I love learning. I love reading, love learning about new stuff. I love applying what I know to what could potentially be. But just sitting in a school and or sitting in class and stuff, I hated it.
I think it's a lot to do with the courses you're forced to learn. Too,
yeah,
right?
that's it too, right? Like they force you to learn all these kind of like classes and stuff
that you may never use again.
Exactly, right? You know, so I always stuck to the practical stuff, like even drama, because it taught me to be able to think on your feet. You know what I mean? Like improv and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I liked the weightlifting because it taught you how to get big and take care of your body and your health and all that stuff. So it's like I like that kind of stuff just because it allowed us to like really apply to life skills, you know, vectors and all that kind of stuff. I can't use that stuff right now. You know what I mean? So, but you know, going back into it, like with that kind of stuff, I was just never really the best at that. So when I went to the camp and everything, I tested, I placed my name in the hat, and I didn't really get a call back from anybody, right? And so, you know, from that point, from 14 until I graduated high school. I was doing 2 seasons a year of football, right? Because it was always basically your high school student, like your high school season in September to December or whatever, and then there'd be 2 months off, and then you'd start training camp for the OVFL, right? And so, you know, my brother basically said, "Yo,
you got a lot of time.
You got a lot of time to get this done, but you're not gifted like that. Like my brother's a monster, right? Yeah. So he was always the guy. Like, you know, he played football in Austria and that kind of stuff. You just get up and lift the entire weight room and all that kind of stuff, right? Yeah. But for me, it was a little bit more of a challenge, and I had to get up to it. And so, you know, for him, he was like, "Well, if you don't have that talent already, then you're just gonna outwork people."
Yeah.
Right. So, you know, that's kind of where the principle of perseverance kind of was tattooed onto my brain.
Well, and I think the greatest part about football is exactly that.
Yeah.
And people take it for granted, but like that's the value that you're going to carry with you off the field.
Absolutely.
Right. And I think, you know, that often gets neglected. That like that perseverance, despite not being the guy, is what makes me successful in any environment. I can just light a fire under that.
Yeah. You know? You can work with that, whatever the hell you decide to go and pursue. You know what I mean? And so, you know, I'm 14. I jumped back into OVFL, so I came back in the summertime of like I guess the summer of when I was 14 years old. So I finished that, jumped into OVFL, and then jumped right into high school football. You know, I was starting to do some technical work with my brother when he come back, and I started to just learn more technique.
Well, that's a powerful combo because you're getting volume on the field. You got 2 different leagues within the year, and then you got your brother coming back from, like, at the time I think it's still U Sport, right? And like he's at a high level. They're one of the best teams in U Sport, and he's a starting D lineman or D lineman on the team.
I think they were NAIA at that time too, so they were competing against like American schools and
good
stuff.
Quality American schools, right? And so you're getting the business, and like guaranteed the work you're getting from your brother is like probably tenfold what you're getting from everybody else. Your own age, right?
A proper stance, a proper get off, like all the where your hand placement is supposed to be, all that good stuff that they teach you on the line. In the next level, it's like I was getting it in high school, right? So then it was just up to putting it up to good use and everything. So, one-on-ones and all that kind of stuff. These used to be my favorite plays because I'd always just stunt and showcase. And it was always a good time, right? So
fast forward to that like grade 12 year, you're looking a little different now.
That grade 12 year was a monster. So that grade 12 year. Switched schools, went to, the family moved to Brampton.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So, family moved to Brampton. I'm in my grade 12 year, captain of the football team. As sure, we are all captains in our football team and stuff like that. And, I was stunting, right? Putting on clinics, just being a technician. We had some awesome CFL coaches. One of them was an NFL championship defensive lineman.
Cool.
And he came and he taught me the dead leg, right? And the dead leg was just the move or the stutter step as a lot of guys will call it now, right? And so that was just the move that I just like embodied and took it, right?
Yeah.
And he taught me that stuff, and it was just like I loved it. It was just something I could do better than the other guys, and I got sacks, right? And so that level of I always translate sport into it's a confidence boost and it's an ego boost. Like every young person should have like some kind of a confidence mechanism, confidence booster, right? If it's not sport, it should be some kind of art. Or should be some kind of like achievement, something. For me, it just happened to be sport. It's the easiest one for me to identify with. And so, man, like when I get a sack or, run down kickoff and just smack a guy down and whatever, it was just like I felt like I was untouchable. You know what I mean? Started getting into superhero movies and comic books and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, you know what I mean?
Totally.
So, yeah, man.
Cool. Like tapping into kind of like where we intersect now is like I'm coming in my first year, I think 2013, right?
Was that your first year?
Might have been my first year.
Wow.
2013. Yeah.
Damn.
So that's like your
my third year.
Third year, right? And the one thing I noticed in like, as a young guy I was trying to be out, like I was trying to go out underage, or not underage, but like just kind of right at the cusp, like that 18, 19. And, having a group that is predominantly older guys on the team. And I think I was fortunate to be one of those young guys that was playing. So I was like involved like earlier with like the older group of guys more so than the younger group of guys, and spending like my schedule in accordance to theirs. So rather than hanging out with everybody in like Totem, I was hanging out with like an older group of guys
in
and these
Fairview
guys
and jamming off over there.
Yeah, like fast forward to today, like a lot of these guys are my mentors and have done very well successfully. Like, and I think it's attributable to the culture that like we had there. One of the things that stood out just on like an immature level of mine was like wherever we went out, Justice was the plug. Like, Juice was the plug. Whether, like, I remember being, like, my first night at the Pit Pub, we went, and there's just, like, probably 100 kids in line. Like, easily, like, on a Wednesday.
On a Wednesday, are you crazy?
Wednesday at, like, 6 p.m., there'd be, like, 100 people there. And I'm just like, damn, like, I guess I'm going home. And then, I showed up one or two people, and I'm walking away, and I'd see a group of, like, the guys, Warren, whoever, they'd be like, yo, where are you going? And I'm like, home, guy. There's 100 people in line. showing me the hands, like,
Yeah,
yo,
man.
just follow us,
Just
follow
follow.
us. And then, boom, lo and behold, there's Juice at the front, boom, boom, boom. It could be 20 of us, doesn't matter.
Yeah, man.
And you think that's like a campus plug, but that's like literally across the city. We go to the Pint, it's the same situation. And so, like, on top of this career, which is like education, you know, waking up 6 a.m.s for workouts, there was this other side of you that was like the hustler of all hustlers in terms of like the security space. And whether that started you working kind of by yourself and then having people underneath you, there was always a side of like, hey, like I want to have a brand in all of these different spaces. And this is like, you know, an avenue where, like, you know, I've realized at a very young age that I can really take over here. When did that kind of transition, or when did you even start thinking security?
Dude, that's a great freaking question, man.
Yeah.
So, man, I think the branding question, you kind of actually, you know, we're going to get to that too, because, you know, the branding question I didn't realize about the idea of branding. I didn't think about it as branding. I just thought about it as being the best you can, or being useful. You know, if you can't be handy, just move to the side and get the professionals in to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And being the youngest of four, I'm not very handy. You know what I mean? Like my older brothers will always just handle it for me.
Yeah.
But then at some point, they're gone, right? So it's like, you got to be handy. So, you know, for me, the brand was always just like, how can I be useful to the people that I care about and that I want in my life? You know what I mean? So it's like, for me, it came down to, you know, when I came out here, didn't have a job, but, you know, I knew that my brother was always in the same kind of industry. Like he was in the security field and he ended up doing corrections and that kind of stuff, right? So it's like he was always in that kind of protection field. It wasn't until much later that I knew more about like my actual roots and heritage and West African culture and stuff like that.
Which we have to tap into.
There's a bigger picture here,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's like, man, like I just knew that protection and that sort of stuff resonated with me. I didn't want to see any of my siblings get affected or get attacked or anything like that, or any of my people and my friends and stuff. And so, you know, I had to really ask myself when I was like 19, like I was working when I moved over here, get the scholarship for well, I get into UBC, let's say, right? And I start working in the kitchen, you know, as a line cook, right? Hadn't worked as a line cook since I was 14 years old.
Where was this?
Joey's restaurant.
At Joey's?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Now, my first.
I remember there was a little Joey's plug.
Yeah,
was it
man.
Joey?
No, it might have been Joey and Connor Flynn.
Because interestingly, like when I first showed up, that's something that you just reminded
Yeah, I
me.
mean,
It was like that was the first
few
job
of the
offer
guys,
for me.
It was Connor Flynn. Connor Flynn was the plug.
Cool.
And then he got Joey. He got a few of the guys on.
Yeah.
At Joey's restaurant. And then
shout out to Connor Flynn.
Yeah, man, Connor Flynn, man.
Putting on for
doing
the
all right.
guys.
You know what I mean?
First time they step in the door.
And that's the other thing, right? Like, and that was the other thing that made me want to, you know, look after guys like you coming in. You know what I mean? Because like when I came in, I had guys like Nathan Kanya, Wamo Culbreth, and those guys that would like take me out, like, shut up, you're coming out, put some good clothes on, put a collared shirt on.
You know what I mean?
I'm gonna show you what this is, and they take me out. Not to like embarrass me or anything, but yeah, they're like, yo, like we're looking after each other.
Spread your wings a little bit.
You know what I mean? Like, be yourself. You know what I'm saying? And so for those guys, they would always go out of their way to take me out or include me in their thing. So like, you know, it's kind of selfish if I couldn't do that for the youngins coming in, right? Now, you know, 19, I'm working in a kitchen, and then Owamo's working at the pit, and he goes, or I guess I was 19 at that point, just freshly turned. And, you know, that the first semester was, you know, something happened at the pit, so they were shut down. And then, so I get put on the roster for the next semester, and then they're like, yo, okay, this is the security game, whatever, right? Now, before that, my brother used to run a few, like, you know, underground parties here and there, and he just need some extra bodies and stuff to do some security. And he put me on in those, right?
Yeah.
The fast-paced environment and all that stuff the excitement. It was a lot for me to handle, but I didn't balk at it. I was just all right. Let's get it done, right?
Yeah.
And so from that like little preliminary experience into going into nightclubs and that sort of thing, man, the value of just being useful, and then another principle which we can get to later about knowing your city. Those were just like principles that allowed me to be able to pay that forward to other guys. You know what I mean? So, and be able to help that out. So that's kind of where I got into the foray of security, because I was like, well, I'd love to be able to be in a setting or in a position to be able to protect my loved ones. Mm-hmm. I also want to be in a position that I could also add value just from being, just from being in a place at the right time, adding a piece of a report, or adding some physical security asset to a location just to protect something. You know what I mean? Or knowing who to call, when to call them, providing peace of mind, right? And so when I looked at just simple things like security, I was like, man, like this is really dope. This is like a cool industry, and not a whole lot of people are looking past the mall cop or the guy sitting at a bank sleeping.
Yep.
And I was like, well,
I said sleeping.
Yeah, sleeping, guy, cave, And I'm like, okay, well, besides that little, when you think of security, you don't necessarily, instead of thinking of it as like, peace of mind, this is an avenue to be able to protect others, or to be able to have a safer environment for not only just your community and your loved ones, but in the bigger scheme of the world, really.
Yeah.
That you're living. It just seemed like a no-brainer. Mm-hmm. And if I can, for selfish reasons, if I could get into a place, not spend money, still enjoy the same kind of environment, and hang out with my buddies, then it was just like it was a no-brainer. It was a win-win situation for everybody.
Totally.
Right? So, that's kind of what made me want to jump into the security industry. Mm-hmm. And then, like I said, learning from guys like Owamo and those guys, like they also did that kind of stuff, right? So, one of the coaches at the time, Coach Erdman, mm-hmm. His brother was running a security company at the time, and so they needed people during the Olympics. And so my first year at UBC was the Winter Olympics in Vancouver.
That's cool. Yeah,
super cool, right? Like 2010, right?
Dope.
Like toward 2009, 2010 was
Nature
like my
Club.
First year, but September 2009, and then the Winter Olympics is in December. So I'm like, man, this is what a cool experience. They had us doing like all the transit security line stuff.
Wow.
They had us doing the beer houses and those kind of things, and just those private parties. You saw all the craziness and stuff there. I got to break down into like writing reports, into doing missing persons files, into doing like different kinds of security.
There's no better way to learn, really.
No, you just like trial by fire there, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like you get down into it, and then you're like, well, this is not only just cool stuff that I don't necessarily have to have a badge and a gun to do, mm-hmm. but I could still be useful and still be counted upon and still be accountable for my own actions, and make the company that I'm working for look good. On top of that, because of the fact that it came through UBC football, mm-hmm. and I was still, a freshling, I redshirted, so I was like, whatever. I was still trying to raise the flag. I was like, yeah, I'm UBC football, right?
Yeah.
So I was still trying to make my lumps there, and this was just another avenue that just allowed me to prove my value.
Yep.
Even if it was off the field, Mm-hmm. And I was able to see some crazy stuff happen. Like somebody came in with bear mace around at the village after one of the shifts. You know what I mean? And like another person came in with a pocket knife, and there's all these little things that were happening. And mm-hmm. I was like, man, I was able to be there to, if I wasn't there, it might have been a different situation. You know what I mean? And so that just reaffirmed the fact that I was in the best position possible.
Yeah.
You know?
So you've had an opportunity before getting started in your own project per se to learn a lot just from observing and doing like the work, the reports, etc. So there's a knowledge that okay, I need a system at some point. But when did that like switch for you? Like I know, for example, you went up north to work and like probably like a lot of us pay off debt, all kinds of things.
100%.
Like also like put money towards starting your own thing now. And I know there's a transition there where you're working for people and then, you want to branch out on yourself. Like what kind of like, what was that spark? And like, was there like financials related to that? Like, what was kind of the start of what is Cornerstone now?
Well, I guess the start of Cornerstone would have been, so basically it kind of started, I would say it started when I went up north. Mm-hmm. Up north was hell. It was terrible. But, I got through it and that sort of thing. And it gave me the idea that, I'm here for a reason. I'm not here to just bullshit and hang around. You know what I mean? I'm here for a reason. So, it gave me a plan to work towards. And then it gave me an idea of, okay, what am I going to do after this? Like, I'm going to do something after this. But I don't know what I'm going to do, right? But I do want to go into security. So I finished that. I went back in and I started doing strike breaking, right? Like picketing and there was a strike that was going on with a few railway companies and that sort of thing, and it was pretty unsafe, right? So I was doing emergency response for that, and then from there, I guess I would have to say I just had some really awesome bosses. You know what I mean? Because even before that point, I had a boss that was, his name is Barry. He would basically bring me on to assignments just because, he wanted to bring me into the industry of like close protection. Yeah. So, he would work with my brother a lot.
I was going to ask what you meant by like, just for clarification for, assignments, you're talking about private security now.
Yeah.
Like,
private
security clients,
yeah.
GMCs with the windows tinted.
Yeah, man, like the B4 armored plates and stuff like that on them. So
cool.
Yeah, man. So like from that kind of stuff, I guess I was still playing. It was the summer, actually the summer before we moved in together, and I ended up getting on an assignment, doing some site liaison work for a Taylor Swift concert. And so they basically, brought me on and told me this is protection, this is what you do, this is what you're supposed to be doing. And I was hooked, right? Because
now you're seeing game plan and like
strategy.
Yeah.
The strategy is what got me, you know what I mean? Because I love the X's and O's of sport, or like, collegiate sport, because there's a strategy and there's an end goal, and we don't have to win all the time. We just have to win when it counts. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
More than we lose. Too.
More than we lose, exactly. So, the strategy and security kind of work the same way. And so when I was there, and I'm like, these guys are bringing me in, and there's a round table. I still have this picture. There was about 12 of us sitting around a round table, and they're going through the table, just listing each of their credentials and their pedigrees and that sort of thing. And I just said, I'm Justice Osei, UBC football, man. Like,
What's up?
I think on my feet. I have some good ideas. I think on my feet, and I'm happy to help. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Nobody batted an eye. They didn't belittle me and all this kind of stuff. They just included me, and they said, cool, you're now Team Zulu. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, boom. And so we're doing the thing, and, there was an incident that happened on the day of, and they were like, well, the principal doesn't want to be photographed while she's doing sound check, right? And nobody had a process or a procedure against taking photos of the protectee when they're doing a sound check. Yeah. And so they were like, okay, the teams are kind of going back and forth, and they're like, okay, well, what should we do? And I just said, can't we just take their phones?
Yeah.
And then they looked at me for a second. They're like, let's just take their phones.
Yeah.
And so they put it in practice. We bagged and tagged their phones, like all the vendors and stuff that were in the vicinity. And the client was happy. You know what I mean? So it's
that's like going up to Drake's apartment after a concert.
Yeah, right? It's like...
Phone's in the bag.
Phone's in the bag, you know what I mean? Like, yo. So, we bagged and tagged the phones, and we got it all done, and everything was good, and it worked out. So, that allowed me to, start thinking of a few things. Like, well, one, we should have processes for a lot of different things. And two, if we should be open-minded enough to know how to improvise and adapt when it's not the perfect situation. Because another principle I know is that no plan survives first contact. You know what I mean? Yeah. So you got to have a backup plan. You know what I mean? And so I guess in 2012, that would be where I just started thinking about the more strategy or the professionalism of that industry as is more than just a guy in a suit or a guy that looks a certain way, just doing the job. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It seems like a big part of like the value prop is like the process, right? Like what separates you from a different security company? Yes, everybody can wear the vests and deck themselves out in an aesthetic, stand in front of a door. Yeah. But like, what kind of value you bringing to the business besides like, this rent-a-cop that will call the cops if something pops off, right?
Yeah.
And that comes with like the training and like the certifications that you've done. Can you speak a little bit on like, like what would separate you and like what kinds of things or what kind of operations you guys are having currently?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, generally speaking, we, in this industry, it's a very self-guided industry. There's no real credential in Canada for executive protection services and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
In British Columbia, we're limited to our basic security license that we get, which is a 40-hour course, and it's run by the JIBC, and security divisions monitors it. So it's a very, very rudimentary, like base level entry point, right? Yeah.
Some people would call that like almost like a boys club.
That's
because it's like it's who you know and the experience that you have. But like it's not the right word to use because like there's a negative association with a boys club.
Yeah.
What it means is that like the best people get the most work.
Exactly. Right? And that's I've sometimes I do feel that that's how it should be.
Yeah.
In the sense that like the best people should get the work because we're not talking about we're talking about lives. We're talking about safety, public safety, and private safety of principles that potentially have the influence to change the trajectory of the world and how we do things, right? And so, like, this boys club, maybe there's not maybe so much of a boys club as there should be, because the barrier of entry is pretty wide open, right? At the same time, it was like. The training that I had to get, like at the time when I really realized that I knew absolutely squat, I was basically just coming off of doing some strike breaking, and then had my second or third like close protection assignment, and one was like a pretty serious one, and from there I was like, okay, well, in terms of processes and that sort of thing, is there any schools that I can go to?
Yeah.
Is there any schools or programs I can take? How long are they? Like, how difficult are they? Like, what's the barrier of entry? How much does it cost? And if you know security industry, it's not a big, high-paying industry. It's minimum wage, right? But that flips on its head when you get to the elite or to the close protection side of things, right? Because then it's just a matter of
dealing with high-profile clients with their lives and their money at stake.
And what that might look like or might be worth to them. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, when I started looking at things a little bit more sensibly like that, at this time I was working for cargo screening for a major airline, and so this major airline. They had me doing checking for explosives and explosive detection, and I'm learning how to read the charts and how to use the machines and that sort of thing, how to fill out manifests and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And at that time, I'm still working at the bar, like I'm still working at the plane. It was the heydays, you know what I mean? So it was great. I get a call for a long-term assignment looking after a high net worth family. And to this day, I'm still honored that I got the call. Well, I was just like, man, I got the call. I got put into an interview. They accepted the interview. They liked it. And I was on to work the next week.
Yeah.
Right? Quit my jobs. At that time, I was going to be, I knew that I needed to get some kind of process together because, they don't teach you this stuff on the private side. So the only way to get this process is to either go military or to go law enforcement, right? And so I chose law enforcement route. So I was going to go CBSA. I was in the process and I was going through it. And so I was like, okay, like this is how I'm going to make my bones.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to use that to transition into the private side again, right? All that, God didn't really have that in the cards for me there. So he just jumped me into the private side, looking after a high net worth family.
Yeah.
And from there, like 4 years into it, I was, that was the stint of a 4-year assignment. But, at that point in time, I was like, okay, I don't know enough about anything. So I was just Googling schools. I was Googling courses I could take.
Yeah.
Anything I could take that was like a 40-hour, 50-hour, 60-hour, 80-hour close protection entry level course.
Yeah.
I found
absorbing that knowledge.
Just absorbing it, man. And I paid I must have paid for 2 or 3 of them in that year. I paid for one out of New West, Maluko. Still love Zoran, man. He's awesome. Just hard-nosed Eastern European, and he just has a good system of how he breaks down the industry and what we do. And I took that and I wore it like an armor. I was like, yeah, I know what my role is. I know what I'm supposed to do. I know what kind of risks might affect me, and I know where to go from there. Right?
Can you elaborate on like that process a little bit? Like not with speaking to a specific client, but say like I'm a high profile guy. And I want to hire you. I'm interviewing you. Like, what are you gonna bring me? And like, what's kind of the process you go through in breaking down this guy's needs and how to operate along those?
Yeah. So everything starts with a threat and risk assessment, right? Like we start with a profile on the client or the protectee, because the protectees are all different because they always have different risks that that affect them and why they might be coming to us.
Yeah.
Some protectees, they might be VIPs, let's say. They might be celebrities or that sort of thing. So then their risks are easy to see. They might have stalkers. They might have cyber threats against them. They might have extortion. They might have people just trying to old friends and family that they can't say no to, and they need somebody else with a little bit more of a, less of a relationship with their people to say, hey, we're not doing that, right? It could be a VIP, like a corporate VIP, who might have like a corporate threat against their organization, against their family, against somebody that's close to them. It could be it could very well be like a high net worth family or somebody like that just has some kind of threat against them. So. And sometimes it's a threat against themselves. Like they can't stop themselves because they might have a mental health ability, like a mental health or
just like to party.
Yeah, or just like to party.
Yeah.
Public perception. That's another major thing that people call us for, right? Like if they can't, imagine the celebrity that gets caught, doing blow off of somebody, and he's the family man in the media. You know what I mean? It's not a good look for him. You know what I mean? So those are kind of things that we either educate them on, because these are security risks that they don't seem like security risks, but they will be security risks really quickly when they start affecting the money and they start affecting their relationships, right? And so we do a threat profile on them just to see what kind of threats they're aware of and what kind of threats they're not aware of. Yeah. And then we break it down into the next level where it's like, okay, well, what do they have to lose? Like, what are their assets like? What are their, what kind of assets are they presenting to the world? Are they the guys that rent Lamborghinis and rent all the jewelry and all that kind of stuff and then shoot all these music videos? So now every time that they go to the grocery store, somebody thinks that they're walking around with a immerse full of hundreds or something. You know what I mean? Like what's being presented out there, right? And then we look at their tolerance level, like their comfort level. Have they even ever thought of working with security before? Have they ever had this kind of stuff happen? If something were to happen, what would you want us to be doing with it, right? This all matters just because of, our job is not to sit there and tell you as a celebrity, you can't go to that party because you're not allowed to go to that party. We're not your babysitters. We are your help. You know what I mean? So like, if you need to go to that party because it's good for your image or it's good for your reputation and that sort of thing, we're here to make you right.
Create a plan for it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think of it as like how I think about CP or executive protection is like it's like a 2-for-1. You know what I mean? Or a twist play. You know what I mean? In a twist play, you got the end crashing in and the tackle crashing out.
Yeah, so multiple variables.
But whatever variable is chosen, the guard or the tackle is always wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The guard or the tackle in that case is the bad guy, right? But he's always wrong. He's gonna latch onto that end that's crashing in because in his eyes he thinks that's the most dangerous part, but he's wrong because the tackle's coming out and he's just as fast as the end and he's gonna clean up things there.
I hear that.
Or he's gonna crash at the end because end's a big body or the tackle's a big body, so he's gonna crash out. But then guess what? That end is gonna crash right in and clean up the quarterback. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like it's always you want to do a 2-for-1 because it's like the customer is always right and the threat's always wrong. You know what I mean? But at the same time, it's like you hear about all the case studies about people hiring security, and then you hear about it in the hip hop space and stuff a lot. They'll hire security and they'll put them in dangerous situations, or they'll say, they'll be speaking all that gang
crazy shit, yeah,
and
talking crazy,
and then saying, oh, but I got my security here, and we're not martyrs. You know what I mean? So this is why we do the threat assessment, because if you're a risk and you're bringing the threat to you, we don't. There's not much we can do to fix that kind of stuff. But if it's something that, hey, you're trying to get out of that situation, but it just some people are just unfortunately, because of their industry, their profession, that sort of thing, it follows them.
Yeah. Then
we're there to help you navigate around it and get into a positive place. You know what I mean? And so, and like I said, the protection space is huge and it's large. A lot of places or a lot of people, we try and stick to the noble side of things and, keep everything with corporate and keep everything with protectees that are on the positive side of stuff. But sometimes there are protectors that don't have that much, they have a different ethos.
Yeah.
And so they might help the other guys try and, get one over on people, or try and help engage in kind of underground activity and that kind of stuff like that, right? So that's kind of like we tend to be in the gray area that way, but because we're in the gray area that way, we the good guys tend to stop, document, look for risks, and look for ways to make sure that everybody goes home. Because at the end of the day, what we do is not about engaging; it's about disengaging in the most efficient way possible.
Yeah, proactiveness.
Yeah.
It's really interesting to think about it like that, because I've never really thought about security in that context of like the initial threats and needs assessment. And every case is so different.
So different.
If you have a high profile guy that's like proactively in your VIP type that likes the attention, well, like the threats are very easy to identify, but there's so many more of them.
Yeah.
Right? And then the super high profile client, you don't really know where that threat's coming from.
It could come from like anywhere in the world. Like
right.
A lot of those ones are cyber threats. You know what I'm saying? And so like they might just be you're now tracing down an email address that's on a VPN, that has like, that's being broadcasted from some other country. And then it's like, well, how do you protect your principal from that kind of stuff, right? Like you need to have a lot of different information or access to, what we now call open source intelligence and that sort of stuff, right? So you can actually help mitigate the risks before they become actual risks at your doorstep.
Yeah. So understanding a little bit of like the executive protection side of things now, when you're talking about like commercial clients or like bars, like Shoppers Drug Mart, storefronts, that type of thing, there's a lot of hustle involved in terms of getting those contracts, right?
There is.
And obviously like the process that you speak of, or like the method, the threats and needs assessment, completely different. Could you elaborate on like the entrepreneurial side of, hey, like, how do I get that first contract or that next contract? And then also, okay, what kind of assessment needs to go on briefly, like when that happens?
100%. So what I did, what I had to do was, I loved the close protection industry. I loved the design of it. I loved going through that assessment process with my clients. But the reality of it was that some clients didn't really care about that kind of thing because if Joe Blow is the guy that's calling me for protection services, I'll draft up a plan for Joe Blow's protection. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and his protection detail.
Yeah.
But if Joe Blow's company is now something that needs to be looked at as protection, let's say Joe Blow is a Shoppers Drug Mart owner.
Okay.
Right? Now we have to look at the risks that affect his Shoppers Drug Mart. And so, working with that kind of company, loss prevention is a number one issue for them. Right? I mean, like they have fragrances and they have
small little products,
easy conceal. They have prescriptions that are over the counter and stuff like that. That people tend to just they tend to come in and steal them, right? So making a protection plan for those kind of clients, and that's broken into the retail industry, and then you mentioned as well nightclubs and that sort of thing. Those I classify into different categories of security industries, right? So with the retail industry, I just look at what their number one threats are, and then plan around it, plan a plan of attack around it.
Yeah.
And then it comes down to, and it always comes down to the budget in security, right? Can they afford it? Because even if I have a loss protection protocol and I have, investigators and all these other people on our payroll, it doesn't really say that the client can actually afford to pay for these kind of people.
Yeah.
And the reality of it is, if they can't afford to pay for these kind of people, I can't provide it. Because my time, my people's time, their effort to get their skill set to be able to do what they do as fast as they can do it costs something.
Does that mean that a lot of the time, if they can't afford that, they don't have the capacity to support what you need to get the process done the right way, that you'll say no to the job?
From time to time, I have to refuse jobs because they're trying to give me a shoestring budget, but they want the entire full service F1 F1 package,
which could affect your reputation, right?
Absolutely.
If you go half in with the product or the resources you need, and then something pops off, well, Justice's security team didn't do it right.
And then we get called from our insurance company saying, well, you agreed to this on this dotted line on this date, and this is what you said you were going to do for them, but you're only able to do this much. So now you're on the hook for that. You're culpable for that.
Yep.
And so, we live in a really litigious society, and everybody has a lawyer or wants to lawyer up or now that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And so, sometimes, I work under the constraints of I do great work if I'm given an opportunity, if I'm given a budget, and if I know and understand, if we're transparent with each other and we can understand what your threats and risks are. I can build you a solid plan that would allow you to have the freedom that you want to have in your day-to-day life or in your business's day-to-day life, but it comes at a cost, right? Now, we're not the most expensive people on the block, but we are not the cheapest.
Yeah.
But we do the best work, you know what I mean? And so, fast forward.
Do not call me for the best price.
Don't call me for the best price. Yeah. You know what I mean? Don't call me for the best price. I'm not that guy, right? But I will give you my assessment, my recommendation on what you should go from, right? Yeah. There's been lots of clients that have called me on the 11th hour saying, hey, can we get security? And I say, okay, it's going to be this price. And they say, well, last time I was paying this much, so why are you guys charging me this? I'm like, well,
it's 24 hours.
Yeah, I mean, first off, you're calling me and you want me to start in about 5 hours. So there's one problem. The second problem is if you're not happy with the price, go to the last guys, because there's probably a reason why you're not calling those guys again. Yeah. Right? Security costs what it costs, and it takes what it takes to do the job. And a lot of people, and unfortunately, I mean, it's a product of where we're at and, you know, the times we live in. A lot of people think they can do the work effectively and stuff, but they skip steps just to make the paycheck. Mm-hmm. Now, they try and make the paycheck because there's not a whole lot of money in the industry, because it's everybody's biting at each other's ankles as opposed to working together, right? Now, I've been super blessed because, you know, in the journey of learning and looking at all this stuff, I've been able to keep in touch with my mentors and work with a group of people out in Alberta, Spec VIP, work with people across the world, go to all these cool conferences that shoot out in Vegas, the close protection conferences, and basically work and network with some of the most awesome people in the industry that they have to offer. Mm-hmm. And through that, I was able to continue the development, like going from that one course I took in New West to going to Edmonton to take a Spec VIP site liaison course, which is a term of a title of or a level of security in the event side of security, which, if we're getting technical, security can be dynamic or it could be static. Static security, you're thinking of banks. Dynamic security, you're thinking of festival, right? Yeah. So those kind of, you know, dynamic situations are changing by the minute.
Yeah. That's where that like deep game plan and strategy comes in, is that part.
Exactly. Yeah. And so there's a group out there, Justin Hansen, he runs it, Spec VIP, and he teaches site liaison security. And I took the course just to audit it and see if I can bring something back of value to my guys. Mm-hmm. And I was blown away by the structure that they had, the level of intellect that goes into the course. Mm-hmm. And I just jumped on board. He has an entire community there, and, you know, he was able to welcome me into the community. So, you know, fast forward from there, going to Vegas, the IPSB security conferences, you know, meeting guys like Elijah Shaw with Icon Global. Mm. He looks after some of the world's most powerful celebrities and icons. Like who? Can't say, but there's some people that you and I both have listened to on a lot of different occasions, and you know, we're seen on film, and, you know, he's
an interesting part when he talks about when you talk about marketing and branding, right? Yeah. Like, I know you've worked with clients too, but you're not going to tell me who you've worked with.
I can't.
And so, like, you know, obviously there's parts of your job where you're dealing with high profile clients, nice whips, beautiful cars. You can't promote any of that.
No, and that's the other thing.
Promote the quality in the process.
That's it. You got to promote the quality in the process, because at the end of the day,
referrals even. Like maybe word of mouth referrals.
That's it. Right? Yeah, because we
no testimonials.
The testimonials and stuff are only on, like, how we do our testimonials. I'll ask them to write something on their own time. If they get to it, they get to it. If they don't, they just don't. Yeah. But the main thing is the word of mouth, or the referrals I get through the organic discussion of elite people speaking to each other. Yeah. It's a very tight group, and they don't just let everybody in the door. Yeah. And so, you know,
it's a sweet spot.
It's a sweet spot right there, right? So it allows me to be able to do my best work without flexing on anybody, or without trying to, you know, show off the client's car that I'm driving here, because it's not my car. I didn't suffer for that. I suffered to be in that space. Yeah. But I didn't suffer for that ride, or I didn't, you know, give up anything to drive that ride. You know what I'm saying? It's not my car.
I'm sure there's so many people that have that celebrity, and that's the one thing they want to get rid of them. like the one thing they want to get rid of is like people knowing who they are all the time. And so you're in a space where you're constantly growing, you're working with the highest profile of people, but people don't really know.
Yeah.
And so like,
so I love it because
awesome.
I'm like a shadow person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or like, or, you know, you get to just develop and support and work from behind the scenes, right? I've always grown up as a shy guy, so I've never really wanted to be in the front of everything like that, right? So this is like my sweet spot because it allows me to support the biggest icons and that sort of thing, and actually just remain my humility. You know what I mean? Or like maintain it.
Yeah. Just a few questions, like kind of in closing. The first being, like, in terms of your operations right now, like you mentioned, you have like import export, sort of like transport side of things. You have like a private security side of things. You have a commercial security. Is there anything else like in that space, or do you have like goals for innovation that way?
Yeah. So I have a few larger goals for innovation. Like I said, we're an enterprise security service, right? So we're full service in the sense that we want to deal with your physical security assets. We want to deal with your protectees and your CEOs and that sort of thing. We also want to deal with your brick and mortar establishments. We want to do open source intelligence and look into places that might have threats circulating around that might attack you later on. Then we also want to do the investigative work, the private investigations of things. We want to be able to go into the logistics planning. Let's say you're coming in from California, you've never been to my city before, but you want to A, have a good time, B, make all your places on schedule, and C, you might have a show or a podcast to do, right? So we want to make sure you get there, arrive there, and have all of your contacts and stuff taken care of.
So many things to think about there. Yeah.
So that all you got to do is not even grab your bag. You just got to get off the plane, get into your ride, and then flow through your day. And then do that same thing in reverse so you get back to your family so that everything is all good.
That's awesome.
And so we just try and make all that really buttoned up and tight so that you have a process, or we have a process for you, so that you don't have to take all that time. Because really, we're working with with leaders of the free world here, and the amount of time that they spend trying to plan their day and that kind of thing, they could be spending on their businesses and doing what they love to do, so that and this allows me to do what I love to do, which is plan for them, so that they can just be them and express their highest value to their shareholders, their families, and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it allows me to look at their situations in a empathetic view, but it also, as a businessman, allows me to put other security-minded people in the right position with the right clientele. Yeah. If I know other athletes that are getting into this space, I'll put them with our celebrity athletes that we take care of. Or if I know that there's other people in the space for, I don't know, our property development clients and stuff like that, then, if I know that this is a financial-minded person or somebody that has some quality assurance practices and that sort of thing under the belt, then I'll match them up with the client. So
it's two birds with one stone, right? Like you get the interpersonal, but you also get like a mentorship component to it for your employees.
And oddly enough, you actually hit the word on the head, man. Interpersonal skills, man. So like my highest calling or my highest value that I'm able to offer is our interpersonal skills and our basically our drive and our interpersonal skills in the favor of our clients. You know what I mean? If that's a nightclub, you're not just going to get a guy that's the security guy that doesn't have any personality, that's just letting in people just to let people in. No, you're going to get somebody that understands the vibe of the space that you're trying to create, your demographic of client that you're trying to bring in, right? And he's going to help you do that, right? It's not just a line item where it's just security and then you don't know why you're paying for it a year in, right? You're going to have somebody that's going to grow with your business, grow with your organization, and actually have positive and sometimes negative feedback to help you along your way, right? So I'm strictly in the vein of supporting awesome businesses be awesome, right? And that's what I've I want to be able to create value-based security programs for all of my clients.
Yeah. Objectively, I think a lot of people look at security as being like very physical. So like, what about just like that side of things, like in terms of like physical and mental preparation and conditioning? Like, what kinds of things are you encouraging yourself and your employees to do, like in the gym, in terms of like martial arts, anything like that?
Fantastic question.
And then also, how do they recover?
Take care of your body.
Yeah.
Take care of your body. You only get one, and you got to take care of it like your life depends on it. Because in our industry, your life does depend on it. Yeah. If we're running because there's an active shooter, or a live assailant that's actually popped up, then how are you going to get not only just yourself, but yourself, your protectee, and your protectee's entourage out in a very, very succinct, efficient manner?
You're kind of putting yourself before them, like out of the nature of your job. Right?
Absolutely. So it's in the nature of your job.
For yourself and them.
Yeah. So like clients kind of look at us sometimes like we're superhuman, but I bleed just like you bleed. You know what I'm saying? You see me in very vulnerable situations before in our time together. You know what I'm saying? So it's like,
you look like you just got shot right now.
I just got it looks like I just got shot right now, man. I'm like hobbling around and shit. So it's like, clients look at us for the answer, like to be that answer, that superhuman solution to their problems. And so if we can't deliver on that because we haven't taken the extra steps to look after our own body or our own mental health or our own well-being, then are we really ready for that level of responsibility? Yeah. Because when shit hits the fan, that's not the time to be like, oh, shoulda, coulda, woulda. It's too late.
Yeah. So it's not like mandatory, but there's like a loose kind of expectation of, hey, you show up to the job out of shape, you're probably not gonna get another job.
Just like ball.
Right.
It's not mandatory. There's no, in university they gave us a piece of paper.
Right, but in the pros, you show up out of shape, you get cut.
You just get cut.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This is the pros here. So it's like, if you show up and you're not prepared, we're going to find somebody who is. Mm-hmm. And the beautiful thing about this industry is that over the pandemic, this industry is almost doubled in size. You know what I'm saying? So like new protectors are coming out of the woodwork from all kind of diverse backgrounds that are hungry, and there's a new crop of people that are wanting to get the education. And so, if you don't want to do the work, it's okay. Somebody will. You know what I mean? It just means that you might not be happy with what you get left with. You know what I'm saying? But that being said, the good guys know real recognizes real, and those ones that are, in the gym, 4 or 5 days a week, studying case studies, shooting, they're doing their YouTube evaluations, they're doing their open source intelligence, they're looking at their ideal clients, and they're looking at threats that might affect their clients. They're looking at ways that they can bring value to their circles. Yeah. You know what I mean? Me, myself, from when I was 19, my values bringing, being, as you said, the plug, so to speak, right?
There's so many parallels between that and like I just think of like my time playing pro ball. It's like you are, out of the necessity of your job, you're in the gym and you're taking great care of your body. But what separates you now is like that film study. And like your ability to like recognize tendencies and like
that's it.
Analyze like who you're about to be up against. So
that's it.
Right.
You got to know your enemies. You got to know your threats. You got to know where they're coming from. If you're surprised at all, then that means you just need to learn more, because every incident that happens, or every scenario that happens, should have another a solution to it. One of the principles that helped me really solidify that fact was when I started taking Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right? There's in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, man, there's so many grips and locks and all this kind of stuff, but there's always a way out of it, mm-hmm. right? And there's always a counter to it, yep. right? And so, learning that fact and learning that, hey, how the body moves just to get out of this situation, or how to, it might not be easy to get out of it, but there's a way, mm-hmm. you know what I mean? And just looking for that path of least resistance to get into that successful position for yourself. Mm-hmm. That's what keeps your brain going, and that's what keeps you like thinking, Yeah. Because when the bullets start flying, you don't have time to think. You just got to move.
Is that what you try to do the most when you're like trying to practice or build your skills, like BJJ, like boxing?
Yeah. I try and do a lot more BJJ these mm-hmm. days. I like to do. I used to like to do a lot more Muay Thai and stuff like that. Mm. I have a bad knee. Yeah. So
I would hate to see you throw an elbow though.
Yo, the elbows are dirty, yo. The elbows are dirty for real. But like, and I like that fact. That fact that you can. It's like 8 points to mess with. You know what I mean? So I might dabble back into it after my knee recovers and everything. Mm-hmm. And I might just get back into it. But Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu teaches me a lot of things outside of just rolling with another human being. And then Muay Thai teaches you just the raw explosiveness about it, right? Yeah. And then you already know what weightlifting does for us, and mm-hmm. functional movement, which is another thing I got from you, is just, taking care of your joints, taking care of your movement capabilities, and always trying to expand that the elasticity that you're allowed, basically. Yep. So. Cool.
Mm-hmm. Some more kind of closing questions. This is like a kind of a checkout question. Yeah, we ask everybody. If I went to your place right now, what could I find at your place that I wouldn't find at others?
What could you find at my place that you wouldn't find at others? An assault bike in my living room. Okay.
For the business.
An assault bike in my living room.
That's good stuff. I need to get one of those.
And a laser sight shooting range in my living room as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So
you're just practicing shooting what kind of gun?
So right now the weapon system I'm practicing on is a Smith & Wesson MP 2.0. So that's just a 9mm gun, handgun. But I also
you can scarce it, and it's just laser, right?
It's just a laser. Yeah. So I'm not flashing anybody in anything. That not a real bullet. It's the same thing that if you had a cat, they would love to just see it chasing around the wall, right?
But between you and the dog and the gun, imagine trying to rob that place.
Yeah, man. It's a bit of a fortress that I'm building in there.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I come in. You walk in the front door. The first thing you see might be a big old bookshelf. Yeah. And okay, this guy knows how to read, and he has a good selection of books. Yeah. And then you pan over to the left a little bit, you might see the assault bike. Okay, he stays in shape. Yeah. I got my little Bowflex weights and stuff in the corner. And then you pan a little bit further to the left. Oh, firearms.
This guy's about his business. I'm out.
You know what I mean? So it's and then you see the size 14s at the doorstep, and you're like, I don't want to be here.
Yeah. This is not the place for me.
Let's just go home. You know what I mean? Try again another day.
That's funny.
So,
okay.
Yeah, man.
The last one was a movie. So, if you could live inside of any movie, which one would it be and why?
Oh, man. This is a tough one. Any movie? Mm-hmm. Any movie? If I could live inside of any movie, damn, that's a really tough one. Mm-hmm. Well, I'll talk about my favorite movie being Fight Club. But I don't know if I would want to live in Fight Club.
That's fair.
But I like the idea of it.
Be in a couple scenes.
Yeah, I'd be in a couple scenes. I might be one of the dudes in the back, you know what I mean? Just watching the show happen. Mm-hmm. But I just like how gritty and real it is, and how they're in fights. He says in the movie, you don't know about yourself until you get into a fight. Mm-hmm. So when the bullets are flying, when you're stripped bare, these guys are fighting freaking bare chested and just freaking just getting the aggression out.
Yeah.
That's when you see like they're most exposed, like they're at their most vulnerable, if you will, and then you can see what the man's made of. Right?
I like it.
So it's like, yeah, man, I think Fight Club might be the place I'd be at.
Yeah.
I don't know how I'd last, but you know.
Yeah.
So
cool.
Yeah, man.
The last one is just like a message to your younger self, like looking back at like whether it's elementary justice or high school justice. Would you have anything to change? Would you change anything, or do you have any messages for them? Just keep going. Like, what would it be?
Yeah, man. The message I would have been is just be curious, continue to be curious, bring value. You know what I mean? Don't be scared to fail, because I feel like failure has always been an underpinning fear of mine.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of people have that fear of failure. But don't be afraid to fail, because even if you fail forward, you can still get ahead. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So don't be afraid to fail. Try some new shit. Don't be, you know, I know I made a lot of my bones looking at my older brother and having a good mentor. But don't be afraid to fail, man, because there's a lot of different ways to get by in life, and a lot of different avenues that people aren't looking at.
Yeah.
And just because one person tells you that this is not how you do it, it doesn't mean that that's not how you do it.
Right.
It just means that that's not how they do it, and they don't,
or they couldn't do it,
and they're imposing their limitations on you.
Yep.
Right. But if you're a guy that comes out like how we come out, or you know, you get blessed with height and wit and charisma and all this other kind of stuff, you can use some avenues that they just didn't have at their disposal, and then 10x it. You know what I mean?
Love it.
So, yeah, man.
Hey, man, appreciate you. Always a pleasure.
Always.
Till the next time.
Man.
Yeah.
No
I think
doubt.
there's a lot of bars for people on here, man. Any aspiring entrepreneurs, people that are involved in security themselves, or people just like, you know, in a place not knowing like what their direction is. Just some words of wisdom and some great experience to pull from. So.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And you know, if you are ever curious about it, you could check out our website at www.cornerstonesecurity.ca, and I do have a blog section on, you know, different tips and tricks and 101s on security industry.
Cool.
So if you're ever, you know, even if you want to have a house party and you don't know what kind of vendors to use or what to look for, what kind of stuff to have in your spot.
You got it broken down for
Yeah,
me.
I got it broken down. It's
Awesome.
on the website. It's on the blog spot. So check it out.
That free value.
Yeah, man.
Appreciate you, man.
Hell yeah.
Sweet.